Out front now, Jonathan Tasini, Bernie Sanders supporter who challenged Hillary Clinton in the primary contest for her Senate seat here in New York, and our political commentator Bakari Sellers, a Hillary Clinton supporter. So, Bakari, let me start with you. This latest poll out of Wisconsin, within the margin of error, but obviously this would be, after the hat trick that we saw this weekend of wins for Bernie Sanders, a real big momentum boost, as Jeff is alluding to, if he were to win Wisconsin. Should the Clinton campaign be concerned that it's so close in these final polls?
No, not at all. In fact, I think that, first of all, you can't take away anything from what Bernie Sanders was able to do this past weekend. But Bernie Sanders has an extremely high bar. He just can't win close in Wisconsin because the states that come next are very treacherous for him. You have New York, you have Pennsylvania, you have California. You have not only the District of Columbia, but you have some other states along the way that are very diverse, and Bernie Sanders is going to have to prove that he can win in those states and excel in those states, not by small margins, but extremely large margins.
Which means,
so the road is very, I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying, so this comes down to that union vote, which Jeff is talking about, is that big 20% of the Wisconsin vote. Some of that could go for Trump. Sanders saying, of course, Jonathan, that he's going to get the vast majority of it. But this is crucial, right? He's got to do this. When you look at Michigan, where he pulled off that big win, you had a win of 49 to 46% for union households. So it was tight, but he did it. He won those union households. He's got to win them again, doesn't he, in Wisconsin?
Put the phone down.
Was that for me,
Aaron?
Yes,
for you, Jonathan.
Yes, I think he does, and I think he'll do very well. We have to remember that lots of union households remember, particularly in the public sector, remember what Scott Walker did to unions, and they're more likely, I think, to then go for Bernie Sanders. And his economic message, the fact that there's a rigged economy, the trade agreements that have hurt people dramatically in Wisconsin around the Rust Belt, trade agreements that Hillary Clinton has consistently supported, which have cost people their jobs. I think that's going to play very well for Bernie, and I think we're doing very well there. My sense is that the momentum is with us. I'm going out there probably in a couple of days, replacing Jeff out in the trail, and I think we're doing very well.
So, Bakari, Hillary Clinton has been attacking Bernie Sanders every time she can, saying that his plans don't add up financially, right? His health care, and in the case of free public college tuition. When I spoke to Sanders last night, I asked him point blank about her attacks on this. You know, she said, you'll never get the free college here in Wisconsin because Wisconsin's governor won't chip in the money. And he didn't dispute it. Here's how he answered the question.
Now, what Secretary Clinton says is that Scott Walker may not go along with that. Well, you know what happens to the state of Wisconsin if he does not? What? California will, Vermont will, states all over this country will, and young, bright people will be leaving Wisconsin. And I think the people of Wisconsin will tell Scott Walker, you know what, this will be a disaster for the future of our state. Because when kids leave, sometimes they don't come back.
Bakari, that was a pretty powerful argument in the sense that he said, look, he's going to be forced to do it. Fine, you're going to have a brain drain if you don't.
But what happens to those kids who can't leave? What about those small community colleges? How are they going to flourish? What about those historically black colleges in states like Georgia or South Carolina? What about in Florida and Ohio, these very important swing states? We know that Rick Scott and John Kasich aren't going to contribute the money necessary for kids to have free college. So what are we saying to them? I mean, it's very impractical to simply say that because California is going to do it, because Vermont's going to do it, all of a sudden people are going to leave the state and this is going to be a brilliant idea and work perfectly. But it has so many holes in it that it's impractical. No, I would love nothing more than to say that we can have free college, but to simply say that other states are going to do it and so kids are going to leave is not an answer. That's not practical. That's not real life.
Aaron, first of all, I have to compliment you. I thought my Bernie verse exploded with congratulations. I thought you did a great job last night.
Thank you.
And what he also said, which wasn't in the clip, was that people will rise up in those states and demand from those governors. And I'll say another thing that he didn't say. I'll bet you local businesses are going to go to those governors and say, wait a minute, we need those people to be here to help our businesses. We want a highly educated workforce. And I think there'll come a lot of pressure from the private sector for those governors who would initially resist this.
All right. Well, thank you both very much. We'll see how this all plays in the polls. Of course, that's been a big part of the popularity for Bernie Sanders among young voters, whether these questions and answers add up to them.